Fun stood there, gobsmacked, barely able to wrap her head around the words. "This is my home, Chibuzo. I'm your missus," she said, voice trembling. Chibuzo just sneered, cold as a winter's morning. "A missus I don't need anymore," he shot back, blunt as a brick. "I should have gone for Aiden from the get-go. She's everything you're not." Welcome to Treeside Tales, a ripper collection of African stories full of heart. Aiden and Daifun's mateship kicked off on the dusty oval of Umu Primary School, where they bonded over a shared plate of rice and beans. From that day, they were thick as thieves. In high school, their bond only got tighter. They shared textbooks, clothes, even whispered secrets about their crushes. They dreamt of their futures, swearing nothing would ever tear them apart. By uni, their friendship was the stuff of legends. They lived together, studied together, and hit up the same parties. They made a pact. No bloke would ever come between them. But then Chibuzo rocked up, and everything started to shift. Ifun met him in their second year, and the vibe changed. At first, Aiden was stoked for her mate, but as Ifun got swept up in love, Aiden felt left in the dust. A bit of jealousy crept in, quiet as a shadow. By their final year, Ifun was engaged, and they tied the knot in a massive shindig. Chibuzo was loaded, after all. Ifun strutted through Abuja like royalty, decked out in the flashiest gear, imported fabrics, and jewelry that sparkled like the sun. She cruised around in a shiny new Mercedes-Benz, a Pressie from her hubby, and rocked designer heels like nobody's business. To the world, she had it all: a beaut home, a rich husband, and a life most could only dream of. But behind closed doors, Ifun was living a nightmare. Marrying Chibuzo was the worst call she ever made. Chibuzo was a big shot: cash, clout, and power. He spared no expense to make sure Ifun looked the part. Whenever he jetted off overseas, he'd come back with fancy perfumes, gold bracelets, and shoes that shone like stars. But Ifun soon clocked that his gifts weren't love. They were a cover-up, a way to hush her pain. The first time he hit her was on their honeymoon. It was over something small, a silly spat about where to spend the evening. Ifun laughed it off, wanting to stay in, and, whack, Chibuzo slapped her so hard her vision went fuzzy. He said sorry straight away, kissing her swollen cheek, begging forgiveness, and pressing a diamond necklace into her hands. "You know I love you," he whispered. Ifun believed him. But the hits kept coming: a shove for speaking out of turn, a tight grip on her wrist for asking too many questions, a punch when she dared stand up to him. The next day, there'd always be a new gift: a car, a silk scarf, a fancy watch, like money could wipe away the bruises. At first, Ifun cried. She thought about bolting, running back to her family. But how could she? She was Ifun, the perfect wife, the woman all the young Sheilas in Abuja envied. She was married to a powerful bloke. So, she dried her tears, slapped on some makeup to hide the marks, and strutted through the city with her head held high. Chibuzo would come home from his trips with shopping bags for her, but his real fun was elsewhere, in the arms of other women. Ifun never asked where he went at night or why he rolled in at dawn, reeking of booze and someone else's perfume. She'd learned after that first slap that keeping quiet was safer. The neglect stung worse than the hits. Ifun was Chibuzo's wife, but he treated her like she didn't exist. He barely touched her, ate his dinner, then vanished to the guest room or out the door altogether. She longed for the days before the wedding, when he'd hold her close, whisper sweet nothings, and make her feel wanted. Now, she was just a trophy, something to show off at events but never truly love. While she lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, he was out with other women, women he actually desired, women he paid attention to. He had no respect for her, no matter how much she copped it. Ifun made sure no one saw her pain. Every morning, she stood in front of the mirror, covering the evidence of Chibuzo's cruelty: a bit of powder for the bruise on her cheek, a long-sleeved top to hide the handprints on her arm, bright red lippy to draw eyes away from her swollen lip. She'd step out looking like she didn't have a care in the world. At every event, she played the doting wife, smiling, laughing, holding Chibuzo's hand in public. When people asked about her husband, she'd grin and say, "Chibuzo looks after me so well. I'm bloody lucky." And they bore it. Even Aiden, her best mate, fell for the lie. Aiden envied her, resented her, wished she could be her. Ifun saw the way Aiden looked at Chibuzo, the admiration, the longing, but she kept stum. She let her believe the fairy tale because if Aiden knew the truth, would she still be jealous? Ifun had the lot, but she had nothing. She wore the flashiest clothes, but underneath, she was battered and broken. She couldn't tell her family. Her parents would be ashamed. She couldn't tell her mates. How could she, after years of making them think she was happier than anyone? So, she copped it, smiled in public, cried in private, and put up with the beatings, the cheating, the loneliness, all to keep the perfect lie alive. Once you spin a yarn that good, you've got to live it. While Ifan struggled in silence, Aiden watched with green eyes. She saw the flash cars, the gifts, the money, and thought Ifan had it made. She's got it so good, Aiden thought, bitter as. If I was with Chibuzo, I'd never take him for granted. She started popping by more often, dressing up a bit flashier, speaking softer around Chibuzo. She wanted his attention, his wealth. She had no clue he was a mongrel. Ifan, too ashamed to spill the truth, let her mate believe the pretty lie. Sometimes it's easier to wear the mask than bare your soul. At first, Aiden was just a visitor at Ifan and Chibuzo's place, a best mate who'd come over for a yarn, a feed, and to ogle the life she thought Ifan didn't appreciate. She convinced herself Ifan didn't deserve Chibuzo. How could she, always whinging about him staying out too late, not valuing the luxury he gave her? Aiden, though, reckoned she got him. At first, it was just harmless chats. She'd hang around after dinner, making Chibuzo laugh while Ifan was in the kitchen. She'd big him up, praising his hard yakka, his strength, his success. A bloke like you deserves to be worshipped, Chibuzo, she said once, flashing a cheeky smile. Chibuzo, a bloke with an ego as fragile as a bicky, lapped it up. The subtle glances turned into long yarns. The quick touches became lingering ones. Aiden started dressing even flashier when she visited, her perfume hanging in the air. Then one night, while Ifan was off visiting her folks, it happened. Aiden rocked up, pretending she didn't know Ifan was away. She found Chibuzo alone, a bit pissed, and they got cozy. She laughed at his jokes, put her hand on his, and didn't pull away. He didn't stop her. By the end of the night, the betrayal was done. They swore it was a one-off, but it wasn't. They started sneaking around, Aiden finding excuses to visit, Chibuzo making up business trips for stolen weekends. Their affair was thrilling, dangerous, and full of sparks. Unlike with Ifan, Chibuzo was gentle with Aiden, showering her with gifts like he used to with his wife, calling her his true queen. To Aiden, this was the life she'd always wanted. Ifan's too blind to see how lucky she is, Aiden would say, wrapped in silk sheets, running her fingers over the gold bracelet Chibuzo had just bought her. She was never meant to be my wife, he'd reply, pulling her close. For the first time, Aiden felt like she'd won. Little did she know, her downfall was just around the corner. Ifan had spent the past week at her mum's place in Marabar, looking for a bit of comfort from the one person who truly cared. Her mum noticed the sadness in her eyes, the exhaustion on her face, but Ifan wouldn't spill. What was the point? No one could help. After 7 days, she headed home, knackered, lugging a small travel bag, just wanting to crash. But when she stepped inside, something felt off. The lights were low, the air thick with a strange scent, a woman's perfume. Her heart pounded as she moved through the house. Laughter drifted from the bedroom, her bedroom. A woman's voice. Her hand shook as she pushed the door open. There they were. Aiden, her best mate, sprawled across a bed, wrapped in a silk sheet, hair a mess, glowing like she'd just won the lottery. Beside her stood Chibuzo, bare-chested, holding a glass of whiskey, looking like he didn't give a toss. For a long moment, no one said a word. Ifan's breath caught, her vision blurred. It was a nightmare, but no amount of blinking made it go away. "What's this?" she whispered, voice shaky. Aiden stretched lazily, a smug grin spreading across her face. "Exactly what it looks like," she said, not a hint of regret. Chibuzo set down his glass, exhaling slow. "I don't want you anymore, Ifan," he said, calm as you like he'd rehearsed it. "You can clear out." Ifan's world fell apart. "Clear out," she echoed, barely able to process it. "This is my home, Chibuzo. I'm your wife." He scoffed. "A wife I don't need," he said, blunt as a sledgehammer. "I should have married Aiden from the start. She's everything you're not. She gets me, appreciates me, and knows how to treat a bloke." Ifan felt like she'd been king-hit. "So, after everything, this is how you end it?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "It was over ages ago," he replied, grabbing his shirt off a chair. I was just waiting for the right time to tell you. Pack your bags. Aiden didn't look guilty. She didn't even look sorry. She just smirked, adjusting the silk sheet around her. Best you go, I fun, she said, mocking. Why stay in a marriage where you're not wanted? Ifun's hands clenched into fists. You were my best mate, she hissed, tears of rage and heartbreak streaming down her face. Aiden shrugged. And now I'm his wife-to-be, she said, shameless. Ifun wanted to scream, to fight, to tear the place apart, but what was the point? Chibuzo had made his choice. Aiden had picked her path. And Ifun. She'd lost everything. Tears streaming, she turned and walked away. The scandal rocked Abuja, online and off. For weeks, people gossiped about how Aiden had nicked her best mate's husband. Some called it a disgrace, others reckoned it was karma, saying Ifun must have stuffed up for Chibuzo to ditch her so easily. Aiden didn't care. She'd won. She strutted through Abuja like a queen, her wedding to Chibuzo even flashier than Ifun's had been. She made sure of it, decked out in the priciest lace, dripping in gold, head held high as she became Mrs. Chibuzo. People will yap, but they'll get sick of it, she told herself. Let 'em gossip. I'm the one in this house, not Ifun. She had the cars, the cash, the luxury, and most importantly, the bloke she'd always wanted. Ifun, meanwhile, vanished. She left Abuja, heart in pieces, while her former best mate took her place. Aiden told herself it didn't matter. She'll survive, she thought, dismissive. She was always too weak for Chibuzo anyway. For the first few months, everything was ace. Chibuzo spoiled Aiden with gifts, took her to the fanciest spots, and made her feel like a goddess. Told you I'd treat you like a queen, he whispered one night, arms around her. Aiden sighed, thinking she'd finally scored her dream life. She thought she'd won, that stealing Chibuzo from Ifun meant a life of wealth, power, and endless love. She saw herself as the queen who dethroned another woman, the ultimate prize in Chibuzo's life. But she was dead wrong. Barely 3 months into the marriage, the fairytale shattered. Chibuzo wasn't the bloke who'd once showered her with affection. He turned worse than she could have imagined, worse than he'd been with Ifun. He didn't even bother hiding his affairs anymore. He brought other women home, laughing in Aiden's face when she kicked up a stink. They wore her clothes, ate her food, slept in her bed, while she sat there, humiliated. You knew who I was when you begged for me, Chibuzo sneered one night, arm around another woman right in front of her. You wanted this life. Now live with it. But the cheating was the least of it. At first, the violence was occasional, a slap here, a shove there. But soon, it was out of control. Chibuzo hit her for the smallest things. If his dinner wasn't hot enough, if she asked a question he didn't like, if she just existed at the wrong moment. One night, after she questioned him about bringing another woman into their bedroom, his rage exploded. He grabbed her by the throat, slammed her against the wall, the impact sending pain shooting through her. He didn't stop, punching her stomach, her ribs, her face, like she was nothing. Aiden screamed for help, but no one came. The same people who'd once envied her now pitted her in silence. No one wanted to get involved. When Chibuzo was done, Aiden lay on the cold floor, barely breathing, vision blurred, lip split, body throbbing with agony. She'd never felt pain like this, physical, emotional, mental. In that moment, one thought burned in her mind. This is what Ifun went through, and I was jealous of her. Truly, all that glitters isn't gold. Days turned into weeks, and Aiden stopped fighting. She didn't question where Chibuzo went, didn't flinch when he brought other women home, didn't cry when he ignored her completely. The fire she'd once had, the arrogance, the jealousy, the desperation to be his queen, was gone. She'd become what she never thought she'd be, a defeated, broken woman. The worst part? Chibuzo didn't give a toss. He barely acknowledged her, just like he'd grown tired of Ifun. Aiden realized she wasn't special. She'd fought so hard to take another woman's place, only to inherit her suffering. Everything she'd envied, the wealth, the gifts, the man, came with a price she never expected to pay. Now, in the house she'd once seen as a palace, she understood the bitter truth. She hadn't won. She'd lost everything. 4 months, she endured Chibuzo's cruelty, his fists, his insults, his blatant affairs. She'd thought she was different from Ifun, special. But now she knew, Chibuzo never loved anyone. He only owned, used, and discarded. One night, after another brutal beating, Aiden lay on the floor, gasping for air, body aching, vision blurred. But one thought burned clear: if I stay, I'll die. She had no strength left to fight, no dignity to protect. The life she'd envied was a living hell. So, she did the only thing she could. She legged it. With nowhere else to turn, Aiden went looking for Ifun. Ifun had moved on, far from the shadows of her past. She'd built a new life in a nearby town, started a cracking business, and found happiness again. When Aiden rocked up, exhausted and broken, she fell to her knees, sobbing. Ifun, please, I'm sorry, she cried. I betrayed you. I took your husband, thought I'd won. But I've lost everything. Chibuzo ruined me, just like he ruined you. Ifun watched, her face unreadable. Then she laughed, shaking her head. You wanted him so bad, Aiden, she said. Now enjoy him. Aiden's tears fell harder. Please forgive me, she begged. Ifun sighed, her voice calm but firm. Forgiveness, she said. You wrecked our mateship for a bloke. You humiliated me, laughed at me, took what was mine. But now you've learned, Chibuzo was never a prize. She grabbed her bag and turned away. Go back to your husband, Aiden. Isn't this the life you wanted? With that, Ifun walked off, leaving Aiden in the dust. Aiden had won the battle, but in the end, she lost the war. Thanks for tuning in, legends. Give us a like, drop a comment, and hit subscribe for more Ripper stories.